The first crime is falsification of business records. That's the misdemeanor that got elevated because he allegedly did it for unlawful means. And that unlawful means part is a New York state law that says you can't conspire to win an election by unlawful means. And we used the example yesterday, like, okay, if you steal ballots out of somebody's box, mailbox, yeah, I got it. That could potentially violate that New York State statute. But what Andy's been pointing out is that there's a New York State constitutional provision that says you cannot incorporate by reference when making something unlawful. You have to say specifically what law they're not allowed to violate. In other words, that law that's right on layer 2 there, right? Falsification of business records was a misdemeanor, but it goes up to a felony if it's to, campaign by unlawful means. And that law right there is not going to be upheld on appeal, Dave, because you can't just say unlawful means. Let's make a deal. That's what led to the let's make a deal. And Andy's been making the point that law is going to be struck down under New York's Constitution. Forget due process in our federal Constitution, which is also at play.
It is a real possibility. My friend Eric Columbus, who is a progressive legal expert, said that he expects there to be a conviction, no jail time, and the conviction would be overturned on appeal. And I think if it is overturned on appeal, it would be because of that. But it is a legitimate debate whether that unlawful means is a manner in which the crime is accomplished or an element of the crime. Because remember, it's the two words within that secondary statute, and that statute still has to be proven beyond a reasonable doubt by a unanimous jury. It's just up to the jury to determine what are the unlawful means. Is it the tax issue? Is it the campaign finance issue under federal law? Or is it the falsification of business documents that Michael Cohen did to get the loan from the bank?
So where was the legal expert, Mike Davis, on New York State or federal tax law? Where did I miss that testimony? Where was the election law expert, Brad Smith, to actually help illuminate this is what would be illegal? Where was that? Because I'm going to venture to guess these jurors don't understand what rises to the level of illegality under the tax laws, under the election laws, or the business records laws, the three possibilities in front of those doors, any more than any other layperson walking around out there in New York does.
That's a very good question, because this corrupt, biased Democrat Biden donor judge, Juan Merchan, refused to allow President Trump to call Brad Smith, the former chairman of the Federal Election Commission, as an expert in federal election law. And this judge is saying it's my job as the judge to instruct the jurors on what the law is. Well, he didn't do that. And he actually let Michael Cohen and even David Pecker testify as to what this election law is, which is, I don't know how that's not reversible error in itself, but this jury is left utterly confused as lay people. I guess there are two lawyers on this jury, but we have this jury that's utterly confused as to what election law is. This judge will not give them the jury instructions on paper so they can look at this and try to make sense of it. And here we are, three lawyers on your show right now. I mean, I think that you two are much smarter than I am, but we have reasonable intelligence between the three of us. And we don't know what the hell the legal allegations are in this case after the trial's over.
I know. That's what's so scary. Think about it, Dave. You prosecute cases for a living, and we're still like, well, this part may or may not be constitutional. Well, this seems to be making a reference over here. And federal election law, I mean, for the record, this is what happened. The defense wanted to call Brad Smith to offer testimony on federal election law, which the feds have specifically said needs to be handled by the Federal Election Commission because it's so complex. It should not be a law that's enforced by any rope-a-dope prosecutor like Alvin Bragg. That's why they gave them the exclusive jurisdiction over these claims. But Bragg backdoored it into the case. And then when Trump said, well, somebody should hear from an expert on what that statute actually requires and doesn't, the judge said no. Finally, he said, you could put Brad Smith on the stand to define like a couple of terms. And that's it. And Trump's like, oh, forget that. And Brad Smith tweeted on X, He's so limited what I could say that it became pointless, and the defense decided not to call me. So for those saying like Trump decided not to call him, that's not what happened. He got limited such that Brad Smith's testimony would have been irrelevant. But you guys and I have been round and round on Brad Smith, Dave. We just played that famous soundbite that we had yesterday when you were on with Arthur, and Arthur was here yesterday, and Brad Smith was here, and he was explaining federal election law, and you asked him about the John Edwards case, and he had a good answer for you on it. And I actually, in my spare time, because I have no real life, was watching old C-SPAN clips of Brad Smith. I need help. I hope sometime I get the help I so desperately need. Anyway, he was even more interesting, believe it or not, on C-SPAN, right after Michael Cohen got arrested. And even then, he was like, I don't think they've got him on federal election claims. And he went on there about why. So we cut a decent soundbite of that. Let's take a listen. I think it's soundbite 9. Yeah, it's at 9.
I'm skeptical, though, I will tell you, John, that this is a violation of campaign finance laws for a couple of reasons. First, the law has long wrestled with this idea of anything that's for the purpose of influencing a campaign. That could be anything. That could be hosting a 4th of July party in your backyard, right? And so the law has always said we need to narrow that down. And there are a number of exceptions. Some are in the statute and some have been created by courts as a constitutional matter. But the one that's of interest to me here is there is an exception for what is called personal use. That is, you can't use campaign funds for personal use, even if it might be being done to benefit your campaign. Let me give a couple examples. If you were to say as a candidate, boy, I'd look great in that debate next week if I had that nice new suit, right? Can you use your campaign funds to buy that suit? No. Even if you're honestly thinking that'll make you look better in the campaign debate the following week. Can you say, I at the end of a hard day of campaigning and to be ready for the next day, I need a good massage. Can you use campaign funds? No.
And then I'll just continue it. Here he goes on in SOT 10.
And I think it's a common sense matter. If I were to ask people 3 years ago, before there was Donald Trump, I said, look, do you think paying hush money to quiet charges of sexual harassment or somebody who's trying to get hush money for an affair you had, do you think that's a legitimate campaign expense? I think almost everybody would say, no, you can't use campaign funds for that. That's not what campaign funds are for. And I think that's the way the law is, in fact, written. The law says very clearly that the obligation has to have been created by the campaign. Again, a dalliance you had years before created the obligation. That's not a campaign expenditure.
The obligation has to be created by the campaign. And he said to us, it's not a subjective evaluation. It's an objective evaluation on what is the nature of this payment and is it one that could ever be used outside of the campaign context. So polling, yes, campaign expenditure. Get out the vote materials, yes, campaign expenditure. But hush money to pay off somebody threatening to embarrass you in the media, definitely not. People do that all the time, as David Pecker testified, but this jury definitely does not understand that. As we draw near another critical election, it's not just about casting your vote, it's about elevating your voice. I want to tell you about the Association of Mature American Citizens, or AMAC. That's more than just a senior discount organization. They unite like-minded patriots committed to preserving our cherished values and actively opposing the leftist agenda. As AMAC's membership grows, Washington listens. Every new member strengthens this movement. If you love America, check out amac.us/Megyn and consider becoming a 4-year member for just $30. AMAC membership gives you access to the AMAC magazine, free Social Security and Medicare guidance, money-saving discounts, trusted news, sweepstakes, and more. Take advantage of their election year sale, 4 years for just $30. By joining the over 2 million members, get your voice heard. Join now at amac.us/Megyn. That's amac.us/MEGYN. Hey, thanks so much for watching. If you like what you just saw, hit the subscribe button for more clips and full episodes.